Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to go back to a very familiar subject, PENBBS pens. And as you may have guessed from these cute cat stickers, yes, it's a PENBBS order that I placed on Etsy. Here's the order. I got these for a couple reasons. The 471s I wanted to get because it's silver trim versus gold that I have on my other ones. And it's the rounded fine nib, the new version of the fine nib, different. And I want to see how it differs from the original fine nib, which I quite enjoyed. And of course I wanted a 308 Vermouth because I parted with my 456 Vermouth, which I really loved, and this one was quite affordable, and since I'm buying some pens, you know, it spreads the shipping out over all the pens, so therefore it makes it less of an impact. So these are the two I just got in silver trim. And we'll look at the cloud resin first, which is a 43. I know it would have some transparency to it. It has some nice translucency to it, so it's pretty good, and that silver band is done as well as the gold one was. As we undo it, we'll see the fine rounded nib. So we'll compare that to how the medium one writes. And this is my first 77 Storm, and I'm very impressed. That's a beautiful resin that has some excellent pearlescence in it, chatoyancy. I really like the black and the kind of lightish pearl color and the blues, and it's just a wonderful color. And accented with silver trim, which I think works nice. And this is the way I prefer my 471s to be assembled into the size that's good to write with. And again, it's that same fine rounded point nib. So here are my four 471s. These are the first two that I got, which are gold, and these have that medium rounded nib. And again, I just fall in love with these acrylics. If we'll take this one apart and we'll compare it to the fine nib. The engravings are definitely interesting. They do a nice job with that, and it's quite evident that the one on the left is the fine and the one on the right is the medium, even if it didn't have that nice scroll numeric identification. And from the side view, it's even more apparent how that tipping material certainly makes the nib different. So let's ink up one of these and see how it writes compared to the medium. Let's just take a little side trip to look at the 308 in the Vermouth finish. And this has gold trim, which for some pens it added a lot to the price, but for this one the price was very good. It was about $17. And it has the gold nib on it, but this is the other fine PENBBS nib that has a little bit of an upturn at the end. It looks to be about as fine as the other one is. The one in that has, they call it the rounded end. But this is definitely one of the prettier colors, I think. I really like the way that resin looks. It's a very interesting color of green with a touch of blue in it. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what else is in the box with the pen. Is you get a nice eyedropper, and you get this rollerball insert that you can unscrew the assembly with the nib in it and just screw that in and it becomes a rollerball, and it works quite well. I would say it's to the medium broad side of a rollerball. So what ink is always a question, but I decided to put this one in. It's also the same ink I have in the medium nib, so we'll be able to compare the nibs well because they'll both have the same ink. This is I guess in the purple family, in the dark purple family. And here's the chromatography. Interesting. Red and blue makes purple. I continue to be impressed with this resin. It's just an interesting combination of colors and patterns and all those things. So the pen has been inked up. I've been writing with it, and I'm ready to share with you how it writes. And the threading is a little bit difficult. You just have to take your time with it. This is the way I like to write with it because I think that weight of that band just centers the pen very, very well, and it's definitely long enough to work well in the hand when it's posted this way. And I don't mind that opening at the back. Some people don't like it. So you take off the band and you flip that cap around and you don't get the end, and you could put the metal band on the end if you wanted, but then to me that wouldn't be as ideal a balance as it is now. I think you can see the issues that I'm having, and no matter what paper I use it on, it requires a pretty good pressure to get it to write with a consistent line. So looking at it under a loupe, I see baby's bottom, and that would explain what's going on, where if you look at the nib head on, and I'm exaggerating it, that's what it looks like. So the ink sits here in that slit, and when you press down on the paper, there's a gap where the ink doesn't touch the paper, and that's where you're going to get a skip. And if you put a lot of pressure on it, obviously you spread those out. And I also think the tines need to be spread out a little bit. So I'm going to go off camera and do my work on it, and see if I can get this nib writing the way that I like it to write. So there's always a question when you have a pen and ink combination which doesn't seem to be working okay. So here's the medium nib, and this is that same Mulberry Noir ink. And this is much smoother and no skipping whatsoever. And I didn't do anything to this nib. This is as it came. All I ever do is clean them off with a nice ammonia soapy solution. So overall, I definitely think it's the nib. So let me go work on it, and we'll see if I can bring it to be a little wetter and more consistent in how it writes. So what I do to tune the nib, well, this is a fingernail board. This gray side is the polishing side. This is the smoothest. The pink is fairly coarse, and the white is in between. So this is not the one that I use, because obviously the one that I use is covered with ink. So this is one that's probably a little bit easier to demonstrate with. And you have to really be careful threading that in there. So what I did with this one is I just did back and forth, because what I wanted to do was get rid of that baby's bottom. And then I did the same type of motion on here. Now I flipped it over for smoothing. I did figure eights. And I did this a couple times, and each time after I did it, I wrote with it and felt that the nib was improving with each time. And then I used these feeler gauges. The 0.04 millimeter fit. The 0.05 did not. I mean, I've gone up to 0.08 on other PENBBS nibs, but these tines did not want to spread on me. But I'm happy with the end result. I think the flow is good, so let's see how it writes. Well, after tuning, pretty good. I'm much happier with the nib now. The flow is much more consistent. You know, this is not going to be the same as the medium, obviously, but it still lays down a decent amount of ink. And it now feels good on the paper. You know, with a little bit of pressure, it still lays down a nice fine line. If you put a little bit more pressure on it, it opens up and puts down more ink, which is what I like. You know, but in the end, if I was to say I can only have one PENBBS nib, I would say the medium is probably going to be my choice, followed by the original fine nib with the little upturn in it, because that nib I have in a number of pens that are inked up and I've always enjoyed it. So let me rate this pen with this nib, and I'm going to give it an 8.9. That to me is low for PENBBS, but this nib I don't think is going to be for everybody. I had to do a lot of work on it to get it to write consistently, and I don't think anybody would be happy about it writing inconsistently, and baby's bottom is not something that should be on these nibs. I checked the other fine nib I have, and that doesn't seem to have the same issues as this one did, so somewhat inconsistent. But, you know, I still really enjoy the pen, and I don't mind doing a little bit of work on it. They are fountain pens. They are analog writing instruments. And you can tune them for your own preferences. And that makes, to me, it nice. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this hobby that I seem to be extremely engaged with. So we've reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching. May have many great writing experiences. Explore the wonderful world of pens and inks and paper and all of those things that make this nice. So we've reached the end of this video. There'll be more to come. Until then, as I'm running out of space, bye for now. And I could learn to like this nib. It certainly is writing much better than it did originally. Have a great day. Have a great life.